Hello, Up Radio listeners. This is Brant coming at you from 105.5 KACT, right here in Andrews and reaching Seminole, Midland, Odessa, and those of you who are joining us on the internet. I'm very excited today to have a very special friend, and even though she's a friend, she's still an international speaker, author, internet personality. Her name is Fiona Pyszka. And she's not only a highly educated woman, she's a seasoned minister, mother, and a wife of 19 years, and so much more. But, you know, for the women who listen to Up Radio, you're really in for a treat. Of course, Up Radio is brought to you by Greg Griffin, GTG Automation, Plumbing, Electrical, Heating, and Air. He's also the one that brought you the concerts that we continue to do, coming to Andrews in surrounding areas for what Yeshua can do in the at-risk kids. They're the ones who bring you great things such as Up Radio. So back to the interview. Hello, Fiona. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Brant?
Doing really good.
Thank you for having me on your program. I'm so excited to be here and be part of this audience, to speak to your audience.
Well, you know what, Fiona, I'm really excited too because, you and I met through Dr. Ron Charles, who's doing a revival at your church there in Pennsylvania. And our first time to be up there in Amish country, it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And of course, we loved being with you and being with your congregation and experiencing the people there. But Fiona, you know, as a person, you have a very powerful personality in the best way. And what you do is you're teaching women how to be fearless. And I know that you're about to come out with a Fearless DVD series. You also have written some books too. But as an introduction, you know, when I was introducing you as a speaker and author, and we're going to talk about your books, you also have quite a business background too, because you earned your business administration degree from Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, and a master's of business in an international business from Regent University. And on top of that, you're also an ordained minister. So you're a busy woman.
I'm quite busy, actually, but it's great because, I believe that to whom much is given, much is required. So it's just part of doing as God blesses us with abilities and skills. It's our job to just share that with the world.
Well, and so glad that you do, and you literally do that. You share that with the world. You're also, in addition to writing these great books, and of course, we'll go into those. You can tell a lot about a person by the books they write and the books they read, but you have several life coaching books, but you also have developed powerful products that accompany your passion. That's helping people discover their purpose and walk in it. And even though a lot of your ministry is for women, men are attracted to that as well.
Absolutely. I've worked with in my groups that I do group coaching at times. I've worked with men in those groups to help them, get past whatever it is that's blocking. Many times we do know kind of what our purpose is, or God's revealed to us what it is He wants us to do, but there's something blocking us from getting there. And that's part of all the things that I help people to do is just discover, some people don't even know what it is they're here to do. I love to see the excitement and hear the excitement in their voices when they finally figure it out. And it's something I don't know, but you know it, and God knows it. And it's a good, I like to pull it out of you. There's a product that I developed called a Purpose Interview that the Lord showed with me years ago, and I've been utilizing that to help people discover their purpose and to just walk in it. And walking in it has been the difficulty for many. So that some of the products I've developed help people do just that. And fear is a big part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, wouldn't you agree, Fiona, that fear is the root of everything, all of our problems? I mean, good Lord, whether it's ministry, whether it's the corporate world. I know that ISIS ranks pretty high up there, or terrorism, but before all of this recent terror events and activities, it was said that the number one fear of Americans is public speaking, and people like you and me are like, you got to be kidding! Are you serious?
People were, it's been researched that they're afraid of that more than death.
Wow, now that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, Fiona, you have your Fearless book. Tell us about your book on Fearless.
Yeah, so this book I wrote, this is my second book that I wrote. My first book is called The Purpose of You, and this book is called You Can Be Fearless. And I wrote this because I realized as I was working with clients to help them discover their purpose, one of the things that was holding them back, well, the main thing holding them back was fear. They were afraid to do several things, and sometimes it's simple little things. Sometimes it's a big thing, but either way, fear is fear. And in my book, I explain that fear is not just a feeling or a phobia. Fear is actually a spirit. In the book of Timothy, it tells us that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And that's what the premise, that's what this book is kind of written around, the concept of fear being a spirit. And so we know that the weapons of our warfare, they're not carnal, but they're mighty through God to pulling down strongholds. And we have to utilize the spiritual tools that God's given us to counteract this spirit of fear. And, of course, the verse I'm talking about is found in 2 Timothy 1:7 for those who would like to look that up. But that's what the book is mainly around. I talk about different Bible characters in there and how they stood up fearlessly and what the results were. I talk about Jesus and how he operated. And in the book, at the end of every chapter, I have a place for you to take notes, and I ask you specific questions to help guide you through. So in other words, the book is almost like a coaching product as well.
Wow. Well, speaking of coaching, Fiona, and again, without any further ado, your opportunities for people to join you in live coaching it can be accessed from your website. What's your website?
So the website is FionaInc.com, and it's Fiona, FIONA, INC, short for Incorporated.com. And on there I have, you could sign up for my newsletter. You can, I have some free products on there you can download right away. I believe in convenience, and I know when people need help, a lot of times they need the help right away. They're desperate for some help. So my products on this website, I do have some products from my previous coaching groups that I've done. They've all been packaged for you, and they're available for download right away. As soon as you purchase them, you get them right away. So
excellent.
That is an option that's available.
So that's FionaInc.com. It doesn't get better than that. It doesn't get more simple than that. So your first book was Discovering the Purpose of You?
Yes, my first book was The Purpose of You, and I wrote that specifically. It's kind of designed around my purpose interview product that I use to do one-on-one coaching with individuals. And then the next year I wrote You Can Be Fearless. That has been my number one seller so far. Wow. Then after that, I wrote The Confident You, which talks about how you can be confident. All of these books are available on Amazon, both on paperback and Kindle format. And last year, my book that I wrote last year was called How to Handle Difficult Relationships.
Right.
And that's a two-part book. It deals with, deciding if you're in a truly difficult relationship where you're just misunderstanding each other. And then there's a second part to it that talks about abusive relationships and how you can discern whether you're in one of those and what to do if you are.
Fiona, I've seen firsthand sneak peeks of your Fearless DVD series. And I'm excited when it's going to come out, which is going to be pretty soon. Really, really soon. And, a lot of people use religion. They use Christianity as an excuse to either A, commit abuse, or B, tolerate abuse. And so, there's a lot of listeners out there, a lot of women who listen to Up Radio as well. We're so grateful for you. And I'm a little partial, Fiona. I was raised in chivalry. I was raised to love and respect women. And that's paid off well for me with my wonderful wife, Christy. And she's just amazing. Yeah, well, she loves you, as do I, as do many. But, what are some things out there? Why don't you speak to some of the fears happening right now, especially among women?
I've worked with women who have been in abusive relationships in the church, and that is the part that is tricky because people rarely look for it in the church. As a matter of fact, they think it doesn't exist, when in fact I think it's probably more in the church than not. Right. And the reason is is that the spirit of abuse, which I believe is spiritually driven, obviously, as most of these fear-driven things are, abuse is highly powered by the spirit of fear. And what happens in a situation is the Bible is used against a person instead of lifting someone up. So the typical thing of an abuser, the typical package an abuser brings to the scene is to set up the family structure where they become the one and only voice of information coming into the household and information going out of the household. And once they have set themselves into that position where they are the only voice that could speak on behalf of or could receive information for the household, they have now come into the power position over every person that's in that household. Man, woman, child, animal, anything.
Wow.
And that right there, and our God is a God of order, and He will not break order. Whatever order we set up, He will kind of follow. Every single person, every human being, every child, every person has got the right. God's given us a choice of our will. And, we see that in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. God did not come into the garden to interrupt Satan's, deception of Eve. He expected Eve to choose, who she will follow. Well, it's the same thing with us, but unfortunately in the church environment, things have been misconstrued or misunderstood by women, and some men are the ones that are being abused, actually, I've discovered as well.
Oh, yeah.
And even the children, everyone has misunderstood the concept of how a family should be set up and designed. And that's kind of where the breakdown occurs. In the book, I talk a little bit of that. But definitely, if you are in an abusive relationship, you are not obligated to stay. I mean, that's just the bottom line. What I have recommended is that you simply remove yourself from the situation, and if the person that is doing the actions against you is really not an abuser at heart, but they're just misinformed, they will become teachable really quick. And they'll learn how God really intended for things to happen. But most of the time, it never happens when you stay together. And then there's a reconciliation process. You know what I'm saying? But there has to be action. If you don't take action and you still play along, you really are going to be enabling the action. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is, I don't. A lot of times with abusive relationships, it's very touchy because it could become very harmful. That's why I always say you do want to remove yourself to safety, and then work on it that way.
And that's so important. And I'm glad that you say that. Fiona. I mean, I know enough about you, and I think you know enough about us that we're not the typical churchy, quote unquote. Churchanese, so religious, we're not really good for anything type of people, but we're real, and we believe that we serve a real Jesus who is supernaturally real and really supernatural. And sometimes people will take the word and they will misquote it to justify, again, abuse or to stay in a dangerous situation. And you have had the courage to step out and to counsel women and men in rough situations. Not everyone has the courage to do that. One of the things that all my life I had a hard time when it came to, in one area, I loved pastors and respected them, but in one area I had a hard time respecting them. Is you say, hey, tell me what to do. As a young man, tell me what to do. Oh, brother, God will tell you. It was this cowardly, maybe it was just in their mind, not wanting to have a liability issue. But when I have pastored, I will say, you know what? I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what I do because I believe in it enough. And I have a lot of knowledge in some of these areas that, just unbelievable, horrific, like a horror movie scenarios. Where there is rage and mental illness issues that I've witnessed, and long ago, and there was nobody to talk to about it. And sometimes, there's people in ministry right now, Fiona, that are going through this. There's a lot of pastors who have who have just a horror movie at home. I'm happy not to be one of those. I've got the best wife I could ever dream for. But I do have some interesting knowledge in that area from the past. But there's also women too, who have a nightmare at home, and yet because they're in ministry, they can't talk to anybody about it because, they're supposed to be, as a minister, you're supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to never need a vacation. You never need a raise. You never need a break. And you're never supposed to have marital problems. And that is wrong. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, I say never let the enemy have leverage over you. And fear is the ultimate leverage that the enemy will have over anyone. And darkness gives fear ultimate power. So whatever you can reveal into the light will absolutely shut the mouth of the devil. And one way to reveal things that are hidden in the dark into the light is to have the right person to speak with that can help solve the problem. My version, when I talk to people about what gossip is, it's not just telling someone that, it's not just not saying something about a problem, because that's, unfortunately, the church we've taught, you can't talk about that because it's not good or whatever. But gossip really is when you blab something around to everybody else and they have no power or authority to solve the problem. That's gossip. But if you go to someone who has the authority or who has the solution to a problem and you tell them this is what's going on, then it's not gossip. You're bringing you're bringing a dark thing to light. And so that's how you separate the two. But what happens in households where people are going through these horrific situations, unfortunately, they do talk, but they don't realize they're talking. These things end up slipping out in the wrong environment, and that's when it causes a big problem, even a bigger problem for the body of Christ at large, and people looking in. So I say to ministries and ministers and even business people, anyone, doesn't matter what your position is, really, you could be a student and just tormented at home all day long. The worst thing for a child is to have to keep secrets all the time, you better not tell anybody about this. That's like the number one phrase of every abusive house. You better not tell anybody about this. Our family business stays in our family, la, la, la. And those are all words of control. In our house, we're so free. We can talk about anything, and everything we talk about can go anywhere. That's the way we define our house.
Well, that's a good way to live. And I helped start a church in Tulsa, and for the first 2.5 years, it was a dream. There was harmony, there was joy, and the reason people would say, "Well, how are you doing this? This thing has tripled in 6 months. How'd you?" Well, if the Spirit of Jesus says, "You know what? There's no secrets." Now, I don't mean being inappropriate with too much detail of inappropriate things the wrong time. But what I'm saying is there's no secrets. Someone would come to me, "Well, Pastor so-and-so did this," and I'd say, "You know what? Hold off right there. I'm going to call him, and he's going to expect your call." And so for 2.5 years, there was no gossip, and it was a beautiful environment. How much more beautiful can a family be when they don't have to keep harmful secrets? I hate to quote Dr. Phil, Fiona, but one thing that I know that Dr. Phil, how's that working for you? One thing that I know that he said, one thing he said a long time ago, he said, "There's one thing worse than being from a broken family, and that's being in a broken family."
Absolutely. And, I'm working with teenagers. I've worked with children who come from broken families, adults who've never gotten over it. And it's simply not because it was so traumatic that you can never solve this problem in your life. It's simply because they did not find the right solution. And it feels good when you can tell someone what's happening to you. But that's as far as it goes. It's just instant gratification. What's even better is when you can speak to someone that gives you solutions and gives you answers, gives you steps, and gives you processes that you can work through. And so really, that's kind of how I've designed my solutions for people's lives. It's simply, I've never worked with someone where I just kind of like go through a rote program, this is my process and you take it or leave it and whatever. Because people are people. Every person is a living, moving, breathing organism. And especially if someone's coming out of an abusive relationship, the last thing you want to do is control them in how you're going to help them. However,
Right.
I want people to be aware that if you are in an abusive relationship or you're used to being controlled, one of your main problems that you have is you cannot make a decision for yourself because you're being told over and over again that every decision you make is wrong. So this is one of the traps that keep women or any abused person, even children, in those relationships, is because they truly believe that they can never make a right decision.
Well, don't they call that a battered wife or battered spouse syndrome? Because it's amazing how many men, in what I've seen with men, with ministry to men, a lot of ministry to men, I've seen that there's two kinds of men that are battered. There's one that's just a milquetoast, passive kind of guy, and then there's a man who doesn't believe in hitting girls. If the same thing said to him was said by a man, he'd knock him out. But because he won't, but because he refuses to hit back, he still receives the repercussions of being a battered spouse. And men don't talk about it. Men don't talk about it a lot either. What would you say to women who are in an abusive? And there's a difference. Dr. Laura, she's not soft on people who call in. Well, my husband being abusive. Why? Well, he didn't do what I tell him to do, or he didn't agree with me. That's not abuse. That's a problem.
My book, right. In my book, How to Handle Difficult Relationships, there is a specific process that I take people through when I talk about this to analyze whether your relationship is abusive or whether it's just simply a lack of knowledge. I mean, it could simply be that both people, you and your spouse, are both lacking some knowledge in how to have a proper relationship. How to communicate with each other, how to and I have this thing, and I don't know, it's not popular in the Christian church, I don't think. But my thing about marriage is this: that I don't believe in compromise in marriage. It's nowhere in the Bible. As a matter of fact, every time the word compromise is used in the Bible, it's not used in a positive light; it's used in a negative light. I believe that if you, in a marriage, if you're not going to have to compromise, if you decide to do something for someone, it should be an act of love, and you're making that decision willfully. You're not just doing it because you have to, and that's kind of what compromise is. So you're choosing to do that, and they don't owe you anything for it. Does that make sense? With compromise, it's almost like you do this for me, and I'll do this for you. So in a marriage, we should independently make decisions to do things for each other simply because that's our choice to do that for you, not because I'm going to do this so you do that for me. And if each person has that type of an attitude in a marriage, you don't have to do something to get something back. Everything is just given freely. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, yeah. Well, it really shouldn't be hard, I mean, Christy and I mean, we make people sick, we're so crazy about each other and we love each other so much. But I do things for her because I love her, not because I'm wanting her to do something for me, and of course, but what that does require, though, you might have listeners out there that say, well, my marriage isn't perfect like that. Maybe I should just end it. Well, not necessarily. If you're not in physical danger and there's not abuse, perhaps what you should do is learn not to be selfish. I really wish that somebody would have told me many years ago, Brant, if as a man, if you can put yourself last, truly from a loving servant heart. Now, you're not a doormat and you're not a milquetoast. You're not a wussy boy. You can be very masculine. You can be a warrior. You can be everything that God made you to be. However, when my wife is not under my thumb, she's instead, she knows that she's a diamond in my hand, and it's like, look, you know what? You're my gift. I'm accountable for you. That's why I think we should do this. Versus I'm the man. Well, that doesn't get you very far. There's Dr. Phil. How's that working for you? It ain't working at all. But
inspiration. There's not much inspiration in the phrases of "you have to do this," because even when we raise children, that there's not much inspiration in that. My husband likes to use the analogy that the Lord showed him this years ago before he ever got married. Was that his wife is like a precious vase. How would you take care of a precious vase? What would you do? Differently than just any old regular vase that you can just pick up anywhere. And so it's our perspective on the people and the institution of marriage that makes the difference. And so in the book, the relationship book I do talk about, you can, decide if you're in a relationship where just simply the person's lacking knowledge, or if it's really an abusive person has specific markers about their behavior, and you want to get far away from that as possible, because it doesn't matter where in the world it's happening, they all follow the same pattern. And it never ceases. That tells me it's a spirit that's operating it, and not even the person who's involved, but they're yielding to it because they get some power and control out of it. And that's the thing, that's what happens.
Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with healthy boundaries. And maybe you're a woman out there that you need to draw some healthy boundaries. Maybe you're a man out there that you need to draw some healthy boundaries. It's really sad to me when I'm introduced to people that are great people, and then as soon as that person or that couple walks away, I'm being informed right away that he really has her under his thumb, or man, she really has him under his. I hate hearing that. And of course, I don't respond the way they want me to either. But you know what though? It's possible that you can still maintain your identity. You don't have to lose your identity. I mean, you fell in love because of each other's independent identity in the first place. Why would you want to destroy the very thing you fell in love with? And so, So FionaInc.com, women. She's going to be on a lot. And as far as I'm concerned, you are a woman expert.
Identity. I'm writing a book on identity. That's my next book coming out in about 30 days, Brad. So you spoke the right word there. So we can each identify our own personal identity. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And I've told guys before, I say, you know what, your problem is you've lost your identity. You've given so much of your emotional investment to someone that you gave them the power to set you off with their words, or vice versa. And what you need to do is you need to have your emotional investment in Jesus, and then in your spouse, and then in yourself. And it's that identity, it's that individuality that still can be attractive, just like it was when you first fell in love. Jesus even said, go back and do the things you did at first. So anyhow, that's right. And you can rekindle that if you do that a lot of times. But you know what, Fiona? I am so happy that you're on the show, and I can't wait to talk to you again about your identity book coming up. And, of course, the release of your Fearless DVD series. Fiona Pyszka, international author, speaker, life coach, mother, minister, Wonder Woman, and showing women out there it's possible that you can be strong, you can be brilliant, you can be beautiful, and you can have a fantastic life. Just sometimes just with the right guidance. And so go to FionaInc.com, sign up for some life coaching, and she's always made it affordable, but it's worth it. It's respectable. I personally think it's worth 10 times more, but you've made it affordable for the average person. But it's information though that you'd pay a whole lot more in a workshop. And Fiona, we want to bring you to West Texas. I want to see you do something in West Texas.
I'd love to see the folks out there. Absolutely.
All right. It's been wonderful talking to you. Our women expert, Fiona Pyszka of FionaInc.com. And men, you're going to get some good things out of that too. Can't wait. And we will talk to you, Fiona, next time on Up Radio. Thanks for being with us today.
God bless you.
God bless you.